The totally far-out history of Piggly Wiggly. Dude, whoa, okay, so check this out, my groovy friends. Like, every time you cruise into a grocery store, grab a cart, toss in some chips, frozen pizza, broccoli that you're totally gonna eat later, but probably won't, and then roll up to the checkout, you probably don't even think about how weirdly awesome that whole experience is. But, dude, back in the day, grocery shopping was a total drag. Seriously. And then this one cat comes along and says, man, there's gotta be a cooler way to do this. That dude was Clarence Saunders. And somehow, he changes grocery shopping forever. Also, he names his store Piggly Wiggly. Like, what? That's either the greatest name ever, or somebody was having one seriously righteous day. Before we get into this wonderfully weird story, do all the YouTube stuff. Smash the like button, but, like, gently, because buttons have feelings. Subscribe if you're into history that's more fun than your high school textbook ever was, and ring that little bell thing so the internet spirits know you're cool. Alright, let's ride this wave. So picture America around the early 1900s. No smartphones, no streaming, no memes, and grocery shopping. Dude, it was basically standing around waiting. You couldn't just wander through the store grabbing whatever looked tasty. No way. You walked up to a counter, handed some guy your shopping list, and then, you waited while he disappeared into the back like he was on some mystical quest for canned beans. Maybe he'd be back in 2 minutes. Maybe 10. Maybe he'd come back and tell you they're out of flour and you'd have to rethink your entire dinner plans. It was slow, it was expensive. It was kind of a buzzkill. Then along comes Clarence Saunders. This dude was born in Virginia in 1881 and got into the grocery business while he was still pretty young. After years of watching customers wait around and employees run back and forth grabbing stuff, he starts thinking. Dude, why don't people just grab their own groceries? Mind blown. Today that sounds about as obvious as saying water is wet. But in 1916, people thought that idea was completely bonkers. Still, Clarence believed in it. So on September 6, 1916, he opens the very first Piggly Wiggly in Memphis, Tennessee. And history does a sweet little kickflip. Instead of standing at a counter, customers walked through the store themselves. There were aisles, products sitting out where people could actually see them, shopping baskets, price tags. A checkout at the end. People could compare brands, look around, buy what they wanted, or grab cookies they absolutely did not come in for. Basically, every grocery trip you've ever taken. The whole thing was faster. Stores needed fewer employees. Operating costs dropped. Customers loved having more freedom. Everybody was vibing. Well, mostly everybody. The idea spread faster than somebody telling the neighborhood free pizza just showed up. Pretty soon there were hundreds of Piggly Wiggly stores opening through franchising all over America. People realized this whole shopping for yourself thing was actually a ridiculously good idea. Clarence wasn't just some grocery guy either. He was kind of an inventor. The dude received patents related to store layouts and merchandising ideas. In other words, he literally helped invent the blueprint for the modern supermarket. That's pretty cosmic when you think about it. But life, dude, life is weird. Even legends hit potholes. In 1923, Clarence got caught up in a gigantic Wall Street showdown. Some investors were betting Piggly Wiggly's stock price would fall. Clarence basically looked at that situation and said, "Oh yeah, watch this." He started buying huge amounts of company stock, hoping to trap those investors and force them to pay way more than they expected. For a minute, it actually looked like it was working. Then the New York Stock Exchange changed some rules. Everything flipped upside down. Clarence lost the battle. He suffered massive financial losses and eventually lost control of the company he created. Bummer, dude, like, seriously harsh. But here's the beautiful part. Even though Clarence lost the company, his idea had already escaped into the wild. The self-service grocery store wasn't going anywhere. Over the next several decades, supermarkets got bigger. They sold more products. Parking lots got enormous. Shopping carts got bigger. Somehow the cereal aisle became like half the building. But underneath all those changes, it was still Clarence's idea. Every supermarket, every discount grocery, Pretty much every place where you wander around tossing random snacks into a cart because you were hungry when you walked in. They all owe something to Piggly Wiggly. That's wild. Piggly Wiggly itself kept rolling along under different owners over the years. It isn't the biggest grocery chain in America anymore. But it's still hanging out across much of the southern United States. Lots of folks still call it the Pig, which honestly sounds like a pretty awesome nickname. Now here's one of history's greatest little mysteries. Why in the world is it called Piggly Wiggly? Funny enough, Clarence never gave one official explanation. Some people say he saw a bunch of little pigs trying to squeeze under a fence and thought it looked funny. Others think he simply wanted a name nobody could ever forget. Mission accomplished, my friend. Over 100 years later, everybody still remembers Piggly Wiggly. And honestly, it's kind of impossible not to smile when you say it. Piggly Wiggly. Go ahead, say it out loud, it's fun. The coolest part about this whole story is that Clarence Saunders didn't invent groceries. He didn't invent food, he didn't invent shopping. He simply looked at something everybody accepted as normal, and asked, "Dude, isn't there an easier way?" Turns out, there was. That one simple question completely changed retail forever. The next time you're cruising down a grocery aisle looking for peanut butter while somehow ending up with cookies, ice cream, and 5 things you never planned to buy, take a second to remember the funny little store with the even funnier name that started it all. Pretty groovy for a place called Piggly Wiggly. If you dug this trip through grocery history, give the video a like, subscribe for more totally fascinating stories from history, and let us know in the comments. Have you ever shopped at a Piggly Wiggly? Until next time, stay awesome, stay curious, and may your grocery cart always have room for one more bag of chips. Peace.